Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are not just scratching the surface. We
Right.
are heading straight into the belly of the beast, or, maybe more accurately, the arteries of the beast.
That's a better way to put it.
We are tackling a topic that I guarantee almost everyone listening has stressed about, probably argued about with their family over dinner, or, popped a pill for.
Or absolutely. It's certainly one of the most contentious high-stakes topics in modern medicine.
It really is.
It's the kind of subject where careers are made and broken and where the science has shifted so dramatically that if you stepped out of a time machine from, say, 1990, you wouldn't even recognize the conversation.
We are talking about cholesterol, but hold on. Before you check out thinking this is going to be some dry lecture on eating more oatmeal or cutting out eggs, let me paint a specific picture for you.
Okay.
A picture that plays out in doctors' offices every single day. I call it the red circle moment.
I know exactly the moment you mean. It's almost a rite of passage in the modern healthcare system.
Exactly. You go to the doctor for your annual physical, you feel fine.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you're carrying 5 extra pounds. Maybe you're a little tired. But generally, you're active. You eat reasonably well.
Right. You're doing okay.
And you get the blood work back a few days later, and the doctor sits you down and gives you that look.
The look.
They slide a piece of paper across the desk and circle a number in red ink. Your cholesterol is high, they say.
Yeah.
We need to get this down immediately, or you are looking at a heart attack.
And it is a terrifying moment. The immediate assumption, the cultural programming we've all received for the last 50 years, is that a high number on that page equals imminent danger.
A death sentence, almost.
It feels like a ticking time bomb has just been discovered inside your chest.
Panic sets in. You immediately picture your arteries clogging up like old kitchen pipes filled with, I don't know, bacon grease. You start bargaining with yourself. I'll stop eating butter. I'll run more. I'll eat nothing but kale. But here is the mission for today's deep dive. What if that entire narrative is, well, incomplete? Or maybe even fundamentally flawed?
Incomplete is putting it politely.
Yeah.
If we look at the stack of research we have on the table today, and we're talking about everything from advanced lipidology papers and functional medicine protocols from clinics in Massachusetts and New Jersey to, complex immunology studies from frontiers in immunology, the picture is vastly more complex than just grease in a pipe.
We are going to completely dismantle the traditional understanding of heart health today. We've got sources here that suggest cholesterol isn't the villain.
Right.
It might actually be a victim found at the crime scene. We're going to talk about something called the saturated fat hoax. We're going to uncover a hidden bacterial toxin, something with a very sci-fi name, LPS. That might be the real arsonist setting your blood vessels on fire.
And perhaps most importantly for the practical side of things, we are going to introduce you to a number. A simple ratio that you can calculate yourself from the blood tests you already have sitting in your drawer.
Wow.
It might predict your risk far better than that total cholesterol number you've been losing sleep over.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we aren't just looking at a number on a page. We are looking at what I like to call a metabolic crime scene.
I like that, a crime scene.
And to solve a crime, you have to go back to the beginning. Where did this idea that fat equals cholesterol equals death actually come from? Because it hasn't always been this way, right? Humans have been eating fat for a long, long time.
Oh, no, the dogma is actually relatively recent. To understand it, we have to travel back to the 1950s.
Okay.
This is where the foundation of the so-called diet heart hypothesis was laid. And the central figure here is a researcher named Ancel Keys.
The father of the K ration, right? The military food.
The very same. He was a brilliant, charismatic, and incredibly persuasive figure in the scientific community. He proposed a very simple, elegant idea.
Which was?
Dietary saturated fat raises serum cholesterol, and raised cholesterol inevitably causes heart disease. It was just a linear equation. A leads to B leads to C.
So simple.
And to prove this, he conducted what is now famous as the 7-country study.
I've seen this graph in textbooks. It shows a perfect curve. On one axis, you have fat intake. On the other, you have heart disease deaths. It looks like a straight line up. I mean, it looks irrefutable.
On the surface, yes. It was incredibly persuasive. It shaped government policy, the food pyramid, the McGovern report, everything.
Everything.
But here's where it gets fascinating and problematic. Keys actually had data available from 22 countries. 22. But on that famous graph, he only plotted 7 of them.
Wait. So he just left out the ones that didn't fit the line.
Essentially, yes. This is the textbook definition of cherry-picking data. He excluded countries that completely defied his theory. For example, he left out France.
The French paradox.
Exactly. In France, they eat a tremendous amount of saturated fat. We're talking cheese, butter, heavy cream, liver pate.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And by Key's logic, they should have been dropping dead left and right. But they had relatively low rates of heart disease.
It didn't fit the curve.
It didn't fit the curve, so it wasn't on the graph.
And he also left out countries like Chile, right?
Yes, Chile was the inverse anomaly. They ate very little saturated fat but had high rates of heart disease.
The exact opposite of his theory.
The exact opposite. If Keyes had plotted all 22 countries, that perfect curve would have looked like a random scattershot. There was no clear correlation. But the 7 he picked, they made the story look perfect.
So the entire foundation of our dietary guidelines, the low-fat craze of the 90s, the demonization of butter, the rise of margarine, and God, snack what's
No, the snack was.
It was all built on a graph that was manipulated from the start.
That is the argument presented in our source regarding the saturated fat hoax. And it's not just a historical critique. Recent reevaluations are backing this up.
Like what?
We have over 20 massive review papers now, meta-analyses, looking at hundreds of thousands of people that have looked at the data again. And they consistently find no significant link between saturated fat intake and heart attacks or strokes.
No link.
No consistent, significant link.
And one of the sources mentioned the PureE study. This one really blew my mind. It didn't just say saturated fat was neutral, didn't suggest it might be protective?
That's correct. The PureE study is a massive epidemiological study. We're talking over 135,000 people across 5 continents.
Wow.
And it found that higher saturated fat intake was actually associated with a lower risk of stroke.
A lower risk. That is the exact opposite of what we've been told for 50 years. I mean, my grandmother was told to stop eating eggs to save her heart. My grandfather, too.
It forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question. If we have been avoiding the raw materials our bodies need because of bad science, what price have we been paying? Because we have to remember what cholesterol actually is.
Right.
We talk about it like it's arsenic, but it's not.
Right. Let's clear its name for a second. In the functional medicine view, cholesterol isn't a poison floating around your blood trying to kill you. It's a nutrient.
It is vital. Absolutely vital. Cholesterol is the raw material for your cell membranes. Every single cell in your body, trillions of them, has a membrane that needs to be fluid but structural. It needs to hold the cell together while letting things in and out.
Okay.
Cholesterol provides that integrity. Without it, your cells would literally fall apart. But even more than that, the brain is a cholesterol hog.
I've heard the brain is mostly fat, but specifically cholesterol.
The brain contains about 25% of the body's total cholesterol, despite only being about 2% of the body's weight.
25%.
It's needed for neuronal function, for the myelin sheath that insulates your nerves so they can fire signals. It is crucial for the synapses, the connections between neurons that allow you to think and remember.
So if you aggressively lower cholesterol, are you starving the brain?
That is a legitimate concern raised in the research on neurodegenerative diseases. There are studies linking very low cholesterol levels with cognitive decline, depression, and even aggressive behavior. And let's not forget hormones. This is crucial for anyone feeling off as they age.
Which hormones are we talking about?
All the steroid hormones. So testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, DHEA.
All of them.
All of them. They're all made from cholesterol. It is the precursor molecule. This process is called steroidogenesis.
So if you crash your cholesterol levels, you're effectively shutting down the factory that makes your sex hormones and your stress hormones.
Exactly. I mean, think about the symptoms we often associate with getting older. Low libido, brain fog, inability to handle stress, fatigue.
Yeah.
Could these be linked to a 50-year war on cholesterol? In a functional medicine context, absolutely. If you shut down the supply chain of the raw material, the factory cannot produce the final product.
So we have established that the saturated fat hoax might have misled us, and that cholesterol is actually a good guy doing a hard job.
A very hard job.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. Heart disease is real. It's the #1 killer. People are dying. Plaque is building up in arteries. So if it's not just eating fat, what is physically happening? We can't just ignore the plaque.
No, we cannot. But we need to understand the mechanics of how that plaque forms. And this brings us to the biggest misunderstanding in standard blood work.
Okay.
Most people, and frankly many general practitioners, are still looking at total cholesterol, or just LDL concentration.
This is the bad cholesterol, right? LDL. That's what everyone calls it.
That's the shorthand. But LDL isn't even a molecule of cholesterol. LDL stands for low-density lipoprotein. It is a carrier.
A carrier.
Think it as a vehicle.
Okay, I love an analogy. Well, one of our sources uses a traffic analogy that I found incredibly helpful. Let's break this down for the listener because this visualization changes everything.
It really does. Imagine your bloodstream is a highway.
Right.
The cholesterol molecules are passengers. They need to get to work, to the brain, to the cells, so they need a car. They can't just swim in the blood because blood is water-based and cholesterol is oily. They don't mix. So the body puts them in a car.
And the LDL particle is the car.
The LDL particle is the car.
Okay. Passengers, cholesterol inside a car. LDL. Got it.
Standard lab tests measure LDL-C. That stands for LDL concentration.
Okay, C for concentration.
It measures the total weight of the passengers. It tells you how much cholesterol is being transported in total.
But doesn't tell you how many cars are on the road.
Precisely. And this is the crucial distinction. Accidents, or in this case, atherosclerosis, the plaque buildup, happen when cars crash into the side of the road, into the artery wall.
So the risk depends on the traffic density, not how many people are in each car.
Exactly. This metric is called LDLP, or particle number.
P for particle.
Right. And you can have a normal LDL-C, meaning a normal amount of passengers. But if they're all driving individual smart cars, you have a massive traffic jam. That's high LDLP.
Whereas if they are all on big buses, you have low traffic, even if the passenger count is the same.
Right. And you can see how the standard test fails here. You could have two people with the exact same LDL-C number.
The same number.
Person A carries it in large, efficient buses, so a low particle number. Person B carries it in thousands of tiny motorcycles, a high particle number.
Right.
Person B is at high risk for a crash. Person A is not. But the standard test says they are the same.
This explains why you hear those stories of people with perfect cholesterol numbers dropping dead of a heart attack.
It is a major reason, yes. This is called discordance. The numbers just don't match up, and it gets even deeper.
How so?
It's not just the number of cars, it's the type of car. We talk about pattern A versus pattern B.
Pattern A and pattern B. Okay, which one is the one we want?
You want pattern A. Pattern A particles are large and fluffy. Think of them as big, soft beach balls, or those buses we mentioned.
And buses.
Because they are big and buoyant, they simply bounce off the artery walls. They flow down the center of the stream. They are too big to get stuck in the cracks of the endothelial lining.
And pattern B?
Pattern B are small, dense particles.
Cool.
Think of these as BB pellets or motorcycles weaving through traffic.
Oh.
Because they're small and dense, they don't flow in the center. They can easily penetrate the endothelial layer, the lining of the artery.
So they act like shrapnel?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
They lodge themselves into the arterial wall. Once they get stuck there, they oxidize. They turn rancid.
Right.
And that is when inflammation sets in and plaque begins to form.
So having high cholesterol isn't the problem if it's all large, fluffy pattern A particles.
Not nearly as much, no.
But if you have these small, angry pattern B particles, you're in trouble.
Precisely. And standard lipid panels do not distinguish between the two. You need advanced lipid testing, like an NMR lipoprofile or an ApoB test, to see this.
Before we move on from the lipid profile, there was one more genetic marker mentioned in the source that seems, well, scary. LPA. It sounds like a typo. What is that?
LPA, or lipoprotein, is the genetic wildcard. It's essentially an LDL particle, but it has a special abnormal protein attached to it called apolipoprotein A.
Okay.
Think of it as a standard LDL car, but with a nasty modification like spikes on the wheels or a snowplow attached to the front.
Is this something influenced by diet? Like, if I eat too much sugar, does it go up?
Very, very minimally. It is largely genetic. If you have it, you inherited it.
Yeah.
You can't diet your way out of high LPA.
So what's the danger?
The danger of LPA is double-edged. First, because it's an LDL particle, it can cause plaque just like the others. But structurally, that extra protein looks very similar to something in your blood called plasminogen.
Plasminogen. That sounds like something to do with clotting.
Correct. Plasminogen is the precursor to plasmin, which is the enzyme that dissolves blood clots. It's the body's natural clot buster.
No.
Because LPA looks like plasminogen, it competes for the same receptors. It sits in the parking spot, meant for the clot buster.
So it blocks the body's ability to dissolve clots.
Exactly. It doesn't do the job of dissolving, it just blocks the mechanism. So if you have high LPA, you have a particle that builds plaque and prevents clots from dissolving. It's a mechanism for rapid, dangerous blockage. It promotes hypercoagulability.
That is terrifying. And again, this is not checked on a standard panel.
Almost never, unless you ask for it.
Right.
But it's a simple blood test. And since it's genetic, you really only need to check it once in your life to know if you have this risk factor.
Okay. So we've upgraded our view of the crime scene significantly. It's not just the amount of cholesterol, it's the number of vehicles, the size of the vehicles, and whether you have these genetic spiky cars.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why are the arteries inflamed in the first place? Why does the plaque even stick?
This is the million-dollar question. Cholesterol is often just the Band-Aid trying to patch up damage. But what is causing the damage? What is the arsonist starting the fire?
And our sources point to a hidden villain, something that most listeners have probably never even heard of. It has a very sci-fi name, apopolysaccharides, or LPS.
Also known as endotoxins. This is a fascinating area of research that connects the gut to the heart in a direct mechanical way. It completely shifts the paradigm from plumbing to immunology.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is LPS?
LPS is a structural component of bacteria, specifically gram-negative bacteria. Imagine these bacteria are medieval knights. LPS is their outer armor.
Their armor.
It makes up the outer membrane. It protects the bacteria from bile and antibiotics. But to the human immune system, that armor is a declaration of war.
It's a toxin.
It is a serologically reactive toxin. Our bodies have evolved over millions of years to react violently to it because its presence in the blood usually means you have a dangerous infection like sepsis.
Right.
Even picomolar levels, we're talking tiny, tiny amounts, can trigger a massive immune response.
So where is this LPS coming from? Is it an infection?
It's in your gut. Right now, we all have gram-negative bacteria in our microbiome. E. coli is a famous one. As long as they stay inside the gut tube, they're relatively harmless.
Yeah.
They digest food, they do their job. The problem starts when they, or their armor, escape.
This brings us to the leaky gut concept we hear about in wellness circles. Is that what's happening?
That's one major pathway, yes. Scientifically, we call it the paracellular pathway. Your gut lining is only one cell thick. It's held together by tight junctions. Think of them as shoelaces tying the cells together.
Shoelaces, okay.
If those shoelaces get loose due to stress, gluten sensitivity, alcohol, or a lack of beneficial bacteria like bifidobacterium, microscopic gaps open up.
And the LPS slips through the crack.
Exactly. It leaks directly into the bloodstream. This is called metabolic endotoxemia.
Metabolic endotoxemia. That sounds like poisoning your own metabolism.
That is essentially what it is. You are chronically poisoning yourself from the inside. But there is another way it gets in, and this brings us back to fat.
Okay.
This is the Trojan horse mechanism, and this is where the confusion about diet often lies.
The Trojan horse. Okay. Explain this. How does fat help the toxin?
LPS is amphipathic. That's a chemistry term, meaning it has a split personality. Part of it loves water, part of it loves fat.
Okay.
Because it loves fat, it binds to it. When you eat a fatty meal, a steak, cheese, whatever, your body packages that dietary fat into carriers called chylomicrons to transport them from the gut to the blood.
So the chylomicrons are the delivery trucks for fat.
Yes. But if you have a lot of LPS in your gut, if you have dysbiosis or bad bacterial overgrowth, that LPS hitches a ride on the chylomicrons. It hides inside the fat delivery truck.
So the very process of digesting fat brings the toxin into the system.
Exactly. And this is the nuance that gets lost in the fat is bad or fat is good debate. Saturated fat itself isn't the toxin, but it can act as the transporter for the toxin if your microbiome is unhealthy.
That is a huge distinction. So if my gut is healthy and the barrier is strong, I can eat the steak and the LPS stays in the gut where it belongs.
Yes.
But if my gut is a mess, the steak becomes a Trojan horse that smuggles the toxin into my bloodstream.
Precisely. This explains why some people can eat high-fat diets and thrive, while others see their inflammation markers just explode. It's about the gut integrity.
And once it's in the blood.
Once that LPS is in the blood, it triggers the alarm system. There's a specific receptor on your immune cells called TLR4, toll-like receptor 4.
The alarm bell.
Think of TLR4 as a motion sensor. When LPS hits it, it doesn't just ring a bell. It sets off the sprinklers, calls the police, and locks down the building. It triggers the MyD88 pathway.
Which is a fancy way of saying.
It's a fancy way of saying it unleashes a cytokine storm.
Cytokines. Those are the inflammatory chemicals.
Yes. Things like TNF-alpha, IL-6. These are scorched earth chemicals. They rush to the site of the infection, which in this case is your whole circulatory system. They inflame the endothelial lining of the arteries.
So the fire in the arteries, it's the immune system freaking out over this bacterial toxin.
Yes, it's collateral damage. The immune system is trying to kill a bacteria that isn't really there. It's just the armor floating around. And cholesterol.
Yeah.
Cholesterol comes along to patch the damage caused by the inflammation. Gets caught in the fire, oxidizes, and forms plaque. But the cholesterol didn't start the fire. The LPS did.
That completely changes how you look at treatment. Statin drugs lower the cholesterol, but do they put out the fire?
They have some mild anti-inflammatory properties, but primarily they just reduce the patch material. They don't stop the leak in the gut.
Yeah.
They don't disarm the LPS.
Now, I want to get into something really nuanced here. One of our sources from Frontiers in Immunology brought up a point that complicates this even further.
Yeah.
We just said LPS is the bad guy, but the source says not all LPS is bad. This felt like a plot twist in a movie.
It really is. This is cutting-edge immunology. For a long time, we thought LPS was just LPS. A toxin is a toxin.
Right.
But structurally, they're different depending on which bacteria they come from. It turns out the shape of the molecule matters immensely.
So we have good LPS and bad LPS.
Effectively, yes. Take E. coli LPS. It has a structure called hexaacylated. That means it has 6 fatty acid chains or legs and 2 phosphate groups.
Okay, 6 legs.
This specific shape fits into that TLR4 receptor perfectly. It clicks in, turns the key, and boom, massive inflammation.
That's the bad LPS, the one that starts the fire.
Right, but then look at the LPS from bacteroids. Bacteroids are the most common friendly gut bacteria in a healthy person.
Okay, the good guys.
Their LPS is pentaacylated. It only has 5 legs, and it's monophosphorylated.
So it's a different key.
And it doesn't fit the lock quite right. It occupies the receptor. It sits in the keyhole, but it doesn't turn the lock. It doesn't pull the fire alarm.
It just sits there.
It's what we call a weak agonist.
But if it's sitting in the keyhole...
The bad LPS can't get in. It blocks it. It has an antagonistic effect. It's like breaking a key off in the lock so the burglar can't use his key.
That is incredible. So we actually need the LPS from the good bacteria to protect us from the LPS of the bad bacteria.
Exactly. Health isn't the absence of LPS. It's the right balance. You want a gut full of bacteroids shedding this protective LPS to keep your immune system calm.
And if you don't have them?
If you wipe out your microbiome with antibiotics or a terrible diet, you lose that protection. And the problem is standard tests for endotoxins like the LAL assay used in labs, they usually only detect the active or bad LPS.
So they miss the good guys.
They miss the protective one, so we get a skewed picture.
It all comes back to balance in the microbiome. Okay, so we've got the saturated fat hoax, the particle size issue, and the hidden bacterial toxin. This is a lot of science.
It is.
I can hear listeners asking, okay, but what do? I can't order a TLR4 analysis.
No, you can't.
Right.
But remember, I promised a number, a simple tool.
Yes, the triglyceride-to-HDL ratio, TG over HDL. Why is this specific ratio so powerful?
Because it connects the dots between everything we just discussed.
Yeah.
Lipid metabolism, insulin resistance, and this LPS toxicity.
How does it connect to LPS?
Remember how the body tries to get rid of LPS?
Yeah.
The immune system attacks it, but HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, acts as a scavenger.
Right.
HDL binds to LPS in the blood to neutralize it. It grabs the toxin and carries it to the liver to be detoxified.
So HDL is the hazmat team.
It is. But here's the catch.
Yeah.
HDL has a limited capacity. If your HDL is busy cleaning up a massive spill of bacterial toxins because of a leaky gut, it's overwhelmed. It gets used up. It can't do its other jobs effectively, and its levels often drop, or it becomes dysfunctional.
So low HDL might be a sign that your hazmat team is overworked.
Exactly. And what about the triglycerides? High triglycerides are a hallmark of metabolic dysfunction. They go up when you are insulin resistant, when you're eating too many refined carbs, and when your liver is struggling.
So high TG, low HDL, that gives you a high ratio. What does that tell us about the particles?
This is the magic of the ratio. It predicts particle size without needing the expensive advanced test.
Really?
Yes. If your TG-HDL ratio is high, it is almost a mathematical guarantee that you have those small, dense, dangerous LDL particles, pattern B.
It's a proxy.
It's a very, very accurate proxy.
Right.
A high ratio also strongly correlates with insulin resistance. The China Heart study mentioned in our sources analyzed thousands of people and found that those with a high ratio had significantly higher odds of cardiovascular risk.
How much higher?
Something like 1.3 to 1.8 times higher, even if their LDL-C was normal.
So what's the number? What's the cutoff? Listeners, go grab your blood work.
Ideally, you want a ratio close to 1. In U.S. units, mg/dl, anything under 2 is considered decent. Ideally, you want it near 1.
Okay.
If you are hitting 3, 4, or higher, that is a massive red flag for metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and small particle size.
And for our international listeners using MOL.
The study specifically pinpointed a cutoff around 1.4. Above that, your risk curve shoots up.
Okay, so divide your triglycerides by your HDL. If that number is high, you have work to do. And that leads us perfectly into the solution phase.
Right.
Because if the problem isn't just eating cholesterol, the solution isn't just stop eating cholesterol.
Right. Treat the system, not the number. That's the functional medicine mantra.
So where do we start?
We need to look deeper. Aside from the ratio, you should ask your doctor for a fasting insulin test. This checks for insulin resistance before your blood sugar goes up.
Uh-huh.
You need to check HS, CRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein that measures the background inflammation, the fire we talked about.
And we need to look at the gut. Since we identified the gut as the source of the arsonist, the LPS, how do we fix it?
We have to seal the barrier.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop the leak. This involves a weed, seed, and feed approach. You need to remove the inflammatory foods that irritate the gut lining.
Bad stuff.
Processed sugars, alcohol, industrial seed oils, all of that.
And seed the good bacteria.
Yes, specifically bifidobacterium. Research shows that bifidobacterium helps tighten those tight junctions. It pulls the shoelaces tight again. You can use probiotics, but fermented foods are often better.
And then feed the good guys so they crowd out the bad guys. What about the liver? You mentioned HDL takes the toxins there?
The liver is the detox center. If your liver is fatty or sluggish, the toxins just recirculate.
Right.
The source mentioned milk thistle and NAC, N-acetylcysteine. NAC is a powerhouse. It's a precursor to glutathione, the body's master antioxidant. It supports the liver in processing these endotoxins.
And interestingly, there is an enzyme mentioned called intestinal alkaline phosphatase. That's a mouthful. What does that do?
This is your gut's own natural detoxifier. Remember those phosphate groups on the LPS molecule? The things that make it toxic?
The keys that turn the lock.
Right. Alkaline phosphatase chemically removes those phosphate groups. It essentially snaps the key in half. It disarms the bomb before it even enters the blood.
How do we get more of that? Can we take a pill?
It's mostly lifestyle-driven. Certain nutrients like zinc support it, but really resolving inflammation and eating a clean diet allows the gut to produce it naturally. It's part of the gut's defense system that gets suppressed by the standard American diet.
So repair the gut, support the liver. What about lifestyle? Stress.
I feel like stress is the uninvited guest in every health conversation, but here the mechanism is physical.
Okay.
High cortisol, the stress hormone, physically degrades the gut lining. It slows down digestion and blood flow to the gut.
So it loosens the shoelaces.
It loosens the shoelaces. You can eat the perfect, organic, grass-fed diet, but if you are chronically stressed, your gut will leak, LPS will get in, and inflammation will rise.
So meditation might actually lower your heart disease risk by sealing your gut.
Physiologically, yes. The connection is absolutely undeniable.
Before we wrap up, there was one futuristic element in the notes that I barely understood but sounded important. miRNA. MicroRNA. It sounded like something out of a cyberpunk novel.
This is the new frontier. We used to think genes were destiny. You have the gene for high cholesterol, so you get high cholesterol. End of story.
Right. It runs in my family. That's what you always hear.
But microRNAs are like middle managers. They don't change the DNA itself, but they tell the genes how to behave. They fine-tune the expression.
Okay.
They control the genes that synthesize cholesterol, like SREBP, the ones that transport it, like LXR.
So they are the volume knobs on the stereo.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. And research suggests that we might be able to target these microRNAs therapeutically. Instead of sledgehammer like a statin that blocks production downstream, we might be able to just adjust the volume knob at the genetic level.
Wow.
It's still early days, mostly animal models, but it shows how much more complex the system is. It opens the door to precision medicine, where we treat the gene expression, not just the symptom.
It's amazing how far we've come from don't eat butter. I mean, we've gone from a simple pipe to a complex ecosystem involving bacteria, genes, and immune cells.
It really is a paradigm shift.
So let's recap this journey because we have covered a massive amount of ground. If the listener takes away 5 things from this, what are they?
Let's summarize. Point 1. Cholesterol is not the enemy. It's a vital nutrient. The saturated fat hoax was based on flawed data, and modern science shows no consistent link between saturated fat and heart disease.
Okay. Point 2. It's not about the concentration, the LDL-C. It's about the number of particles, the LDL-P, and their size. You want large buses, not swarms of motorcycles. And watch out for that genetic spike car, LPA.
Point 3. The real arsonist is often LPS endotoxins leaking from a compromised gut. They hitch a ride on fats, the Trojan horse, or slip through a leaky gut wall, triggering the immune system to set the arteries on fire.
Right. And point four, not all LPS is bad. We need the good LPS from healthy bacteria to block the receptors and keep the immune system calm. It's all about balance.
And finally, point five. You can track this yourself. Look at your triglyceride-to-HDL ratio. If it's high over 3 in U.S. units or over 1.4 in international units, you are likely dealing with insulin resistance and small, dangerous particles.
That is the toolkit. Now, as we sign off, I want to leave the listeners with a final thought. We've dismantled the plumbing analogy. But what replaces it?
I think we need to leave the listener with this provocation. We have spent 50 years treating heart disease as a plumbing problem, clogged pipes, grease, pressure.
Right.
But the evidence we discussed today suggests it is actually an immunological problem. It is a case of mistaken identity and collateral damage. Your immune system is reacting to bacterial signals from your gut. The cholesterol is just the firefighter getting caught in the flames.
So if you are taking drugs to lower the cholesterol, but you're ignoring the gut and the inflammation.
You are just painting over the cracks in the wall while the house is on fire. You might make the wall look pretty for a while, but the structure is still burning.
That is a powerful image to end on. Listeners, go find that lab report, calculate that ratio, look at your health through this new lens. It might just save your life.
Knowledge is the best medicine.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.